Hello, and welcome to the Cognitive Edge. I am Dr. Daniel Sable, and here is where teachers, librarians, technology professionals, and educational leaders come together to discuss the ideas that are shaping education and the future of learning. Um, so, today I want to talk or discuss a crisis that receives far too little attention, and that is across our schools and libraries. Experienced professionals are retiring or changing careers or leaving their positions. When they walk out the door, they take more than their professional belongings with them. They take years, sometimes decades, of professional knowledge and experience. Um, they understand and know how to calm a classroom before a situation escalates. They know how to, they know how, they know which questions to ask when a student suddenly stops participating. They know how to manage a difficult situation or a parent conversation without making the conflict worse. They know how to build trust with administrators, how to collaborate with colleagues, defend a library program, and recognize when a new initiative is unlikely to work. Much of this knowledge cannot be found in a manual somewhere. This has developed through the years of experience, reflection, mistakes, relationships, and professional judgment. It's something that we grow into. So, the questions that we must confront are simple. Who's preparing the next generation of teachers and librarians before that knowledge disappears? Is the first one. The second is that about training is not the same as mentorship. And I want you guys to, you know, think about that a bit. You know, training is not the same as mentorship. New teachers and librarians usually enter the profession with formal education. They have completed courses, written papers, participated in field experiences, and earned the required credentials. That preparation matters, but completing a degree or certification program does not mean that a person is fully prepared for every reality of professional life. Um, a course can explain classroom management. It cannot recreate the experience of facing 30 students immediately after lunch on a Friday afternoon, which is daunting, as we all know. Um, a library program can teach collection development. It cannot completely prepare a new librarian to defend a challenged book during an emotionally charged public meeting. Um, that requires some skill and uh, some savvy talking. A workshop can describe collaboration, but it cannot teach every new professional how to work with a colleague who resists change or an administrator who does not understand, for instance, the role of the librarian. Um, formal educational Formal education provides foundations. Mentorship helps professionals learn how to use those foundations in complicated human situations. A mentor does not, um, or a mentor does more than explain policies or answer technical questions. A mentor helps another person interpret their profession. The mentor says, "Hi, is here is what the handbook requires, but here is what you should watch for." The mentor says that meeting did not go as planned, but it does not mean you failed. The mentor says, Before responding to that email, wait 10 minutes and read it again. Sometimes the most valuable professional knowledge is found in a sentence that would never appear in a textbook. And, you know, the all librarians who've been working in the field and on the job for a long time, they definitely can teach you a number of things that you did not know. And the same thing with teachers as well. So the knowledge walking out the door. Organizations often prepare for retirement by replacing a position. They post a job and they conduct interviews, they select a candidate, and they establish a starting date. Administratively, the vacancy has been filled. But replacing a person is not the same as replacing that person's knowledge. And an experienced school librarian may know the history of the library's collection, the technology systems that are in place, the budget process, the curriculum, and the needs of individual teachers. That librarian may understand why certain programs succeed and why others have failed over the years. Um, an experienced teacher may know how the school functions beyond its official structure. That teacher understands which colleagues have particular strengths, have families prefer to communicate, and which traditions matter to the community most. When these professionals leave without transferring their knowledge, the organization may spend years rediscovering what was already known. Um, and this is why paying a little bit more money to somebody and providing a little bit extra benefits keeps people around. Treating people good, treating people like people. Um, New employees repeat old mistakes, rebuild lost relationships, and search for information that could have been passed along through intentional mentoring. This is not the fault of the retiring professional or the new employee. It is basically a failure of the organization's planning. Knowledge transfer should begin long before a person's final week. A farewell lunch is a really kind gesture, but it's not a succession plan. Um, so it's always good to have something going, and we don't want. So we have this sink or swim mentality idea. Too many new professionals are hired, given a schedule, shown their workspace, and expected to perform independently almost immediately. We call this professional autonomy. Sometimes it's closer to abandonment. New teachers may receive the most challenging cases because experienced teachers have seniority. New librarians may inherit outdated collections, limited budgets, neglected technologies, and unclear expectations. And organizations may act surprised when these professionals become overwhelmed. I mean, a sink or swim approach does not identify the strongest professionals. It identifies the people who can survive poor support. Some survive by sacrificing their health, family time, and emotional well being. Others leave the profession entirely. Some people are at that point where they just need to go for their own, um, their own mental and physical well being. So, when a promising teacher or librarian leaves because no one helped that person through the first difficult years, the institution loses more than an employee. It loses the future professional that employee might have become. We cannot complain about staffing shortages while treating new professionals as disposable. Um, the effect of mentorship, um, and what may that look like? So, mentorships, they're not assigning a name to a new employee on a checklist. An effective mentor needs time, preparation, and a clear purpose. The mentor must be available before problems become emergencies, and strong mentorship includes regular conversations, classroom or program observations, shared planning, honest feedback, and opportunities for reflection. The mentor should help the new professional understand both the technical and human sides of the work. Um, what should happen when a lesson fails? It gets pretty rough. You could be standing in front of a class full of kids just staring at you. So, really, how should a librarian or uh, response when a teacher treats the library as a free period? Or how can a new employee ask for help without appearing incapable? Um, when should a problem really be documented? And ultimately, how can professionals protect their time without appearing uncooperative? Uh, how do they disagree respectfully with an administrator? Um, these questions, they determine whether people can function successfully inside real institutions. And effective mentors do not create copies of themselves. They help new professionals develop their own judgment, identity, and approach. Um, the goal is not to say, do everything as I do, because I do it perfectly. The goal is to say, here's what I've learned. Now let us determine what will work for you. And then you try to carve out some um, good functional areas that you would be in, and that would work for you. So, a mentorship, it must be safe. A mentoring relationship cannot succeed without trust. New professionals need places where they can admit confusion without fearing that every question will become part of an evaluation. They must be able to say, I do not know how to handle this, or I think I made a mistake, without immediately feeling that their employment is at risk. Um, I believe that untenured teachers, especially, have this problem where they are afraid to ask because of the repercussions that can come, which is the wrong way to think. But so a new way I think it should be encouraged. If the mentor is also responsible for formal evaluations, the new employee may hide problems rather than discuss them. Whenever possible, schools and libraries should separate mentorship from supervision. Mentors can still offer honest feedback, but primarily their responsibility should be professional growth. Confidentiality, it also matters. A new teacher will not discuss classroom difficulties if every conversation becomes staff room entertainment. A librarian will not seek advice about a mistake if the story is likely to travel throughout the organization. And a mentor must be trustworthy and not just experienced. The mentor also gets a chance to benefit um, because it's often described as something an experienced professional gives to a beginner. In reality, mentors also learn. New professionals bring current research, technology, technological knowledge, new cultural perspectives, and questions that experienced employees may no longer think to ask. Um, they bring an outlook that um, some people may not know exists. Uh, a librarian may introduce a different approach to digital services. A new teacher may recognize that a familiar assignment no longer connects with students. A recent graduate may have training in accessibility or emerging technologies or instructional practice that were not part of an older professional's preparation. It's just, it's just kind of how it happens. But so mentorship should not become a one-way transfer of authority. It should be a professional exchange, and there should be, um, experience. What happens is a context develops, new perspectives. They create movement, and the strongest organizations they actually need both. Um, so the role of retired people, how do we use them? Retirement does not have to mean the complete loss of professional knowledge. Schools, libraries, universities, and professional associations can create structured opportunities for retired professionals to mentor new employees. Um, Retired teachers might support beginning educators through virtual meetings or classroom observations or reflective conversations. Retired librarians could advise new directors, school librarians, or department heads during their first year. Um, this work should be respected and, when possible, compensated. Mentoring requires time, judgment, and emotional energy. Organizations frequently pay outside consultants who understand little about the local community, while overlooking retired professionals who have spent decades serving it. Um, that makes little sense, but when I sit here thinking about it, it's like, retired professionals should not be expected to run the institution from the sidelines. New employees need room to lead, but experienced retirees can provide history, perspective, and guidance that would otherwise disappear. And disappearing is what we don't want. We want to make sure that we keep some talent around because it's important. Mentorship for librarians, really, when I think about that and when I was being mentored, librarians, they present a particular mentorship challenge because many librarians work alone or in small departments. And so a school may have one other librarian, or a new library director may have no experienced colleagues inside the building. A specialist may be the only person who is in the organization that understands a particular system or service. These professionals need mentoring networks that extend beyond their own institution. Library systems, professional associations, universities, and regional organizations can connect new librarians with experienced colleagues. Mentorship can include monthly conversations, visits to other libraries, project reviews, and help navigating difficult professional situations. Librarians should not have to wait for a crisis before discovering that another professional has already solved a similar problem. And this is something that does happen, and it could become financial, could have a whole bunch of risk, and overhead risk, especially if it's not learned to. Um, Professional knowledge becomes more valuable when it is shared, and mentorship for teachers, especially beginning teachers, they need more than occasional professional development workshops. They really need assistance to connect the students' curriculum and problems they encounter every day. Um, it's so hard. You really do need somebody who you can speak with to ask those questions. A strong mentor can help a new teacher plan realistic lessons, interpret student behavior, communicate with families, use assessment information, and decide which problems require immediate action. Mentors can also help new teachers establish boundaries. New educators can sometimes um, believe they must volunteer for everything, um, answer every message immediately, and create every lesson from the beginning. Um, they may interpret exhaustion as proof of commitment. And an experienced mentor will tell them the truth. Burning yourself out does not make you a better teacher. Sustainable professional habits should be taught from the beginning. Otherwise, schools will continue losing talented educators only after a few years. We must preserve institutional memory. Every school and library should identify knowledge that is currently held by one person. Um, who understands the budget process, really, um, who knows the history of the technology systems, and really who maintains relationships with community organizations. Um, who knows how to complete essential reports, who understands why a particular policy was created. Um, if the answer is one person, the organization is pretty vulnerable. And the important processes should be really documented. The documentation alone is insufficient. Writing procedures can explain what to do. Mentorship helps people understand why it is done and how to respond when circumstances change. Organizations should create opportunities for job shadowing. They should have collaborative planning, cross training, and recorded professional reflections. They should also conduct knowledge transfer conversations before experienced employees before they leave. They really should have a sit down and then explain what they're looking for and see if the employee who's leaving is willing to share. We routinely back up computer data. We should demonstrate the same concern for human knowledge. And then we have really leaders, they really should. So mentorship will not succeed if leaders treat it as an informal favor performed during spare time. Teachers and librarians already carry demanding workloads. Asking them to mentor without providing time or recognition often creates one more responsibility for people who are already overloaded. Leaders, they should select mentors carefully, provide training, protect time for meetings, and recognize mentoring as meaningful professional work. Not every experienced employee will be an effective mentor. Years of service do not automatically produce patience, empathy, or communication skills, but a mentor must be able to, listen, question, encourage, and challenge without humiliating the new professional. Um, I think that there's a fine line too with somebody who's new. Leaders, really should evaluate the mentoring program itself and how it's going. Are meetings happening regularly? Do new employees, do they feel supported? Are mentors receiving the resources that they need? Um, these are questions that are just so important. Are beginning professionals remaining in the organization? What's our turnover rate? Which challenges appear repeatedly? So, is there something that's always popping up? Mentorship should be treated as part of institutional improvement, not as a ceremonial welcome. Um, in teaching and librarianship, we do have a culture of shared knowledge. The mentorship crisis reflects a larger problem. Many organizations reward individual experts, but fail to create systems for sharing it. People, they become indispensable because they hold knowledge no one else possesses. While that may be um, great for the short term, it creates long term institutional weakness. Healthy organizations do not depend on professional secrets. They encourage employees to teach one another. They want experienced teachers to be able to share successful practices without suggesting that there is only one correct approach. New teachers should be able to contribute ideas without being told, we tried that years ago. Um, Experienced librarians should preserve institutional history while remaining open to change. New librarians should respect what came before while asking whether all practices still serve present needs. Mentorships create continuity without demanding stagnation. It allows institutions to carry knowledge forward while still making room for new leadership. Um, so, really, the future of education and librarianship will not be secured through recruitment alone. Hiring new people is only the very beginning of the process. Um, we must help these professionals develop confidence, judgment, resilience, and a sense of belonging. We must reconnect them with experienced people who can tell the truth about the work, its difficulties, responsibilities, frustrations, and rewards. At the same time, we must really honor experienced professionals by treating their knowledge as something worth preserving, which is, I think is important. Um, a career should leave behind more than an empty position and the box of old files. Um, it should leave behind stronger colleagues, shared wisdom, and an institution better prepared for the future. Um, the mentorship crisis is not simply about replacing retired workers. It's about ensuring that one generation's knowledge becomes the next generation's foundation. We don't want to see teachers who have many years experience or librarians just up and leave without helping with that transference, so to speak, because it's you're losing a lot of years of time. If schools and libraries fail to make the transfer, they'll continue learning the same lesson at enormous human and institutional costs, really. But if we build up mentorships into structure our professional lives, we can create something better. Organizations where no one begins alone, experience is respected, and new thinking is welcome, and knowledge continues moving forward. I'm Dr. Daniel A. Sable, and this has been The Cognitive Edge. Thank you for watching. Please share this discussion with a teacher, librarian, administrator, or professional who once helped you find your way. And if someone mentored you, take a moment to thank that person, because they probably have done a lot more in your life than you may realize. And more importantly, consider who may now need you, because the knowledge we refuse to share eventually disappears. And the knowledge we pass forward, it does become a legacy. And I think it's so important to honor that and respect those who are still working and those who are going to be retiring soon. We want to keep that knowledge. So, that's it. All right. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye bye.